What is healing? Oh my gosh, we all hear about healing. We're going to heal from infidelity. We're going to heal from betrayal. We're going to heal from trauma. We're going to heal, 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 heal. But what does that even mean? I think personally, healing is one of those words that it means so much, but it has also sort of become meaningless in a way because we don't know what it means. Today's guest is a lovely, lovely woman who has such vast experience and just wisdom around healing. And I asked her to be on the show because I want to have a conversation around healing and what it means. And she'll tell you a little bit more, but she has worked at the Chopra Center with Deepak Chopra. She works with Lee Harris right now. She has been in the healing space. She is a healer in her own right, and she has worked with other people in the healing space. She has witnessed so many people go through so much, and that's why I invited her on the show today. So, with that, welcome to the show, Wendi. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's delightful to be here with you.
Yay. Let's start a little bit just with you and with your whole history in I'm in the healing space. What does healing mean to you? And what are the various capacities you have been involved in not only healing yourself, but witnessing others going through this journey?
Hmm. It's such a great question, and I agree with you. You know, so many people have their ideas about what healing is, and from my personal experience with healing, it's a process that offers humility, learning, heartbreak. It may even feel like a game of chutes and ladders where you have the highs and then you have the lows. Um, for me, what I found in my own experience was that healing was when I finally felt as if it's hard to put into words, but it's as if I felt more aligned,
Hmm.
my body, my heart, in my emotions, in my choices. Um, there's many layers to healing. I find it's not linear. I feel like, you may go three steps forward and two back.
Yeah.
Um, but along the way, it is, for me anyways, has been one of the most interesting, deep, powerful things to go through. And so I had a very significant healing around my health. And it can take you down to your knees, as you know, when you're going through something really difficult. And to have that experience and now to work as a healer, somebody who supports people in healing work, I have such deep appreciation and respect for the process because it is not easy. Um, right? It's you never know quite what you're going to be faced with, and you only understand it when you have enough space, after, like, in real time, it's difficult and it's messy, and but then you get to a little bit of space in the other side, and I've seen this with people in the work, and it's absolutely magnificent.
Yeah. So many different directions that I want to go from that. But let's start kind of at the beginning, something that you mentioned, and that's the humility around healing. Um, I personally can really resonate with that because I feel like one of the things that I realized going through this infidelity journey was I felt like I almost was arrogant in the past. And that's
Mm.
weird to say because I tried to be calm and loving and peaceful, and I was. But I also had this arrogance that if I do things right, bad things won't happen to me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that for me anyways, that was the missing piece is that I thought, well, your mind is strong, you have a good mindset, you have good doctors, you have all the things, but I had a little bit of that same feeling of like, well, why is this happening to me? And I can do this and I should be strong. And when you have those really low moments, you can't help but find the humility. And I think the more that we can come from that place, the more the mindset of, oh, isn't this interesting? Or what can I learn here? Or how can I be more open to this experience? Whatever the discomfort is in that, for me, was an opening to help that humility and to help a different lens for how I was approaching things. Um, and so, yeah, it's humbling to be in a situation that you don't anticipate or that's tricky or messy or hard, and also that people don't understand. Not everyone can relate to your journey or my journey. And that's where I feel like we bridge the gap when we can be in that space of being humble. Um,
Yes. And that was exactly, there were many reasons I was going to say it's exactly the reason I wanted to talk to you. It's not the only reason. There are many reasons,
thank
but
you.
I didn't have the physical. I had the infidelity and betrayal. But even a physical issue can feel like a sense of betrayal. My body is betraying me, my health is betraying me. And it doesn't matter what that betrayal is,
Right.
it's the same being taken down to your knees.
Yes. Yes. And I was just having a conversation about a friend just this past weekend, and she said, how did it feel when your body failed you?
Hmm.
I thought that was such an interesting observation because at a time I did feel very betrayed with by my body because I have autoimmune challenges. But what I said to her, and this is again a 20-year journey, so a lot of time and a lot of learning and growth. I
Yes.
said to her, actually, it's the nuances that I'm more interested in right now with my body, understanding what my body wants to tell me. And I don't look at that in the same way as betrayal. I look at it as this is information for me. And how do I work with it? And what does it mean to have that? And it's my choice how I move forward with it. And so, yes, I understand the betrayal that I originally felt and how that has somehow beautifully morphed into, wow, my body is so incredibly intelligent. It can tell me what is good for me and what is not so good for me. So it's a constant learning, but yes, you're right. It does feel like it could be the same thing.
Right. And I love what you said, that this is a 20-year journey and it has morphed, because that I think is so true, whatever it is that we're facing. At first, it is that, why me? This is awful. I'm a victim, blah, blah, blah. All right, I'm going to fight it. And it's like we go through this range before we get to that level of peace, acceptance, curiosity. And I'm curious how that 20-year journey looked for you, some of those highs, those lows, those chutes and those ladders.
Yeah, it really, it's weird to think it's that long because, time is very strange when you're going through these things.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I love this question because it's making me really think about how much has changed from that original diagnosis where I didn't know who I was.
Mhm.
I felt very lost. I felt disconnected, misunderstood, all sorts of things, to a place of feeling like I really understand more. I think too, Laura, it's like grief. I think
Yes.
I've gone through the stages of grief where, like you said, I had a pity party, those kind that you're like, oh my God, like,
Yes.
why me? All the things. It was pathetic.
Yeah.
Um, Went from that, I experienced anger, I experienced sadness. And I think, as you know, the stages of grief, I'm at the other side of acceptance and allowance. And it has, like have alluded to before, it hasn't just been unicorns and rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah.
It hasn't also been awful. There have been some of the most incredible lessons, and to be the recipient of so much love and generosity in places and from people and teachings and experience that I've been privy to,
Hmm.
that I couldn't have it couldn't have been more incredible to sit here now and say, wow, I will say, because I want to be very honest with you and your listeners, like getting sick is not the best thing that ever happened to me. Like I am not enlightened enough to say that. And I don't know if I ever will be. But the truth is that I would not be here right now doing the work that I do and being in so much joy in that work if I hadn't gone through the past 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. I feel the same. I don't want to glorify, yay, infidelity was amazing. But it did change our marriage. It did change me. And the good that, and I'm going to be a little, speaking of arrogant, a little bit arrogant on this one. I think the good that I have intentionally attempted to cultivate from that. And the
Mhm.
reason that went ahead and leaned into me, we do have free will, we do have choices. And
Yes,
I had this very subconscious awareness early on that this experience really can take me down and ruin the rest of my life, or
yeah,
I can make some different choices and I
yes,
can at least eke as much good and learning and joy out of it as possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, it's always a choice.
Hmm.
In the very beginning of my healing, I was paralyzed by fear. And I was
Yes.
operating from that place and was very much aware of all the noise around me. And it wasn't until I introduced some practices into my life that helped me to get more clear and more grounded in my truth that I could not be so stuck in that fear and trying to make everyone else happy in what they needed in this in this healing. And I really do believe that that was a game changer for me.
Hmm.
I made choices that were aligned with really where I wanted to go. Now, did I always make the best choice? No. Did I learn from those things? Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is about, okay, so what do I do with this? And there was a certain point where I could have even just given up and not worked so hard because I was so medically unstable that I could have made an exit plan if I really wanted to. But
Yes.
my choice was to live and to live in a healthy body and to have joy in all the things that I have now.
Hmm. You said something that I think is really important. And you said something, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but I could have pleased other people in what they wanted me to do through the healing.
Yeah.
And that really stuck out for me because so many people do have opinions
Mm.
and
Yeah.
judgments and
Yes.
wishes for us. I think both positive and negative. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, we live in a world that people have a lot of opinions and judgments, and certainly when they're faced with things that they're not all that comfortable with, whether it's infidelity or if it's a medical diagnosis or something that is life changing,
Hmm.
I find that people don't quite know what to do. And so,
No.
in my case, anyways, people had a lot to say and go to this doctor, you need to do this, you need to do that. And as a recovering people pleaser, which many of us are, I know, raise your hand if you are, I was trying to make everyone happy. And it wasn't until I got really clear that that wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
When I really made that choice, okay, I can either, you know, to end this journey, or I can
Yes.
really step into feeling empowered in my health again. I upset a lot of people. I'll be honest. People were not expecting me to say, no, I'm not going to go down this line of treatment, or no, I'm not going to see this doctor, or I'm going to radically change who I spend time with because
Yeah.
I couldn't, it was difficult to filter all the noise and the judgment. And so even though I upset a lot of people, the people that needed to be around me stayed.
Mhm.
And so that was a really big learning because we have to make choices based on, what feels right for us. And so many of us are intuitive and we don't always follow that intuition.
Right.
And when you do, you feel better, even if you might not have it 100%.
Hmm. So you you have done a lot. You are a spiritually connected person, you're intuitive, you have been in this space for a long time. What was the timeline around you and you getting sick and facing this and your spirituality? Were you completely connected and plugged in the moment of your diagnosis? So you were like instantly went to that spiritual space, or how did this develop for you?
Oh gosh, I was definitely not in that spiritual space. I've always been a curious person and I've always been a lifelong learner. But
Yes.
no, I got a diagnosis in 2003. I went from being a marathon runner, martial artist. I was even the PTA president. I know that sounds shocking, but I was very involved in a lot of different things, very happy, and was just having all sorts of health challenges. And it just took me down to my knees. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to live that new normal and got bounced around to a lot of different doctors and misdiagnosed and all of that.
Hmm.
But it wasn't until 2005 with a series of events that brought me to a beautiful resort where the Chopra Center was. I knew who Deepak Chopra was, but I didn't know that the center was on the property of La Costa. And I went there because my family, every summer, we would go to the island of Catalina. And it was a family tradition, but my doctor said, you can't go because there's
Oh,
not a medical facility there in case something happens. So I had my pity party and took myself to a night or two to stay in La Costa. And it wasn't until I was wandering the property where there was a free group meditation. And like Laura, when you go to a place and you step in, you're like, I know I'm supposed to be here. Like every
yes.
cell in your body lights up.
Yes.
That's how I felt when I walked in there. And I sat down for the group meditation and I just thought, wow, there's something here. And I happened to, it was led by a wonderful guy, David G., who many people know and love in the meditation space. And he said, you should come back and get your mantra. And I thought, yeah, I
I
should. And
should.
so 2 weeks later, I went, received my mantra, and fell in love with meditation. And that was the start and the opening of me understanding that if I could quiet down my mind and the story and the narrative and all this stuff, that would help me. And the rest is an unfolding of just a series of things that led me to do the work that I do. But that was really my opening was creating meditation and into a daily practice for myself. And so that was kind of where it started. And then because I needed something other than to just constantly focus on, going to the doctor and having treatments and all that stuff, I did a teacher training and learned how to teach meditation. And that was unexpected. I thought, oh, I just love the teachings and this will keep me busy. But it led me to working with Deepak and teaching thousands of people meditation and Ayurveda. And yeah, that was kind of how it started. And since that that kind of introduction, I've now taken myself into all sorts of areas where I look at what we can do with our intuition and how we can heal in many, many different ways. And I
Hmm.
have a very full toolbox that I go to, and of course, as we change and age and what's happening in the world, that toolbox is even more precious to me.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I try to do and for myself and for the people that I work with.
Hmm. What I think is fascinating is you found this
Mm,
and it changed your life. And then you continue to pay that forward. You
mm,
did the teacher training and you have witnessed, I can't even imagine how many people you have witnessed
yeah.
going through some sort of transformative experience. Um, I initially met Wendi through Lee Harris. Lee Harris is an energy intuitive. My husband and I have attended his Soul Magic full week retreats twice. We've done some of his weekends. I do a lot of his things because of how it makes me feel. Like when you said, I knew I was in the right place, this was the place that brought me peace.
Mhm.
might bring you peace, it might not bring you peace. And that's irrelevant. What is irrelevant and what matters is finding that thing that we feel good doing. And you found that initially at Chopra Center and then got to witness other people and facilitate other people going through that. So my curiosity kind of around this whole long setup here
Yeah.
is of the people that you have witnessed, that you have processed, that you have been through this, do you witness people who it just doesn't click for, as well as people who are like, ah, what's your experience around that?
Yeah, so my almost seven plus years, 8 years at the Chopra Center, I facilitated a program where it was an intimate experience, a 6-day program, signature program. It was called Perfect Health. I
Mhm.
actually did Perfect Health as a guest, and then many years later ran it and facilitated it. And in those 6 days, where people are learning meditation and yoga and having body work and being in community, there were definitely those that were like, oh my gosh, I'm clear, I know what I need to do. And then there were some that needed more time because, like I said, it doesn't happen always in the time that we want it.
Yes.
So it's a whole range. And the thing was, when I went through that same program, I didn't actually think I got anything from it. I learned all these things, and then I went home, and it was too much for me to incorporate, and people in my life didn't understand. So I wasn't supported in the way that you need to be in some ways. So I found that it was a range. And people they'd leave and they'd either come back at a different event, or we'd keep in touch, and it would be months later, or it would be something that, like, again, they had their opening. And I wish I knew what I know now to say to them, because this is many years ago now, that be patient, be gentle, be kind with yourself through this. My work with Lee is different too, because I've seen many people have breakthroughs, as you have, right?
Mhm.
Being a participant, especially just coming off of our July event that we were both at. You see it happen, and it's beautiful, it's moving, and people, I think, are just so grateful for any opportunity to even just create a little bit of an opening, or explore something that maybe they didn't think of.
Mhm.
But it's always a privilege. Like, I always feel it's such an honor to witness that. Like, I feel so lucky to be in the room, or to
Yes.
be helping to support a course where there's thousands of people that are having these moments where they're getting guidance or direction or clarity, or, like you said, some peace,
Mhm.
some joy. And so, yeah, it's an incredible thing to witness, and it's never lost on me ever. It's really profound,
Yeah.
and I feel super grateful that I have the opportunity to be part of that.
Oh, absolutely. You have used the phrase, have their opening. You know, what
Yeah.
you had your opening, people had their opening. And I feel like I really know what that means. It's that crack, it's that willingness to, oh, maybe this doesn't have to be the narrative that I was told that it had to be. Maybe this doesn't have to be the story that I thought it was. For me, that opening was around because you hear, if somebody cheats on you, you're out of there. You got to leave him.
Right.
I think I said
Right.
that myself 100 times. Well, if my husband ever cheated on me, I'd be out of there. And then it
Right.
happens, and you go, well, the story that's in my head isn't really what my heart and my soul know I need to do. And how do I reconcile that? And that opening for me was I get to write my own story. I get
Right.
to have my own experiences. You alluded earlier to sometimes you make mistakes. I get to make my own mistakes. That's amazing. But it's
Right.
that opening, I feel like that I
Mhm.
have agency. I have power. I get to do things my way. Whether or not I do at every single moment, it's just that awareness that something is different. And this is me and this is my life.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought up the narrative, because I will share another example of what came to me.
Yeah.
Um, I was at an event, not well at all. Um, and there was an exercise called the Namaste exercise, where you look into the eyes of every participant. This was through a Chopra Center event. And it was in that moment when people were looking into my eyes and I was looking into theirs that I was not my story. I was not the story of this young woman that was, wildly athletic and healthy and all the things, became what I was medically. They weren't, that's not what they were looking into my eyes and feeling. It was my own connection to that narrative and that story. And the second I realized I'm not this story, that's when I went home and I made radical changes. And it's funny because they say, don't go home and make radical changes.
But sometimes
And
you know
so,
you need
and
to.
I did because I really felt I had no other choice. And I felt like I was ready. And so I lost the story of this poor girl that was there with an IV pole, because I was there with an IV pole,
Yep.
to I'm going to go home and I'm going to trust my gut. I'm going to trust my heart. I'm going to make choices that feel like they're true to me. And so it takes courage. Like, and I didn't know that I was brave enough. And I think it takes courage for, in what you did and the choice that you made. You know what's best for you. And
Hmm.
it's a shame that we have all these judgments and people. And I think to be able to get out of your way with that story is another way that, again, you can shift what is happening. And so well done for you, because I know how hard that was for me to get
Yes.
out of that loop of of all of it.
It is hard. It is so hard. And it's my guess that, like us, everybody listening has had that moment, have
Yeah,
had that moment of this is what I want, but my head and my heart are in conflict.
right,
Myself and the story that other people, it's
right,
not coming together.
right,
And we had talked a little bit earlier about sometimes you go to a healing event and it's not like rainbows and butterflies and choirs of angels singing.
right.
I have had experiences too, and I'm guessing you're the same, where I go to an event and I have that shift, I have that opening, but it almost ticks me off
Oh
because
yeah,
then it's like, I am in charge. I do have to do this. I'm not the victim here. I can't play that story anymore. Oh my God, I've been doing it so wrong. And sometimes that crack can also be overwhelming. I feel like sometimes we
yes.
don't go home and make all these positive changes and say, I
Oh
get it. Sometimes we're
no,
angry.
no, and I almost feel like like you get the experience that you need. Like
Mhm.
if you're in something, whether it's an online thing or it's a live event or whatever, even reading a book, um, but there's a process, and we are impatient as humans. And we expect that, okay, I paid all this money, I'm taking myself to this thing, and now I should leave there and feel great. I
Yes.
also witness people that are really in their discomfort and really in the process during these events. And it's difficult because you may see people that are euphoric or may see people that are joyful. And you're just, I remember I'm thinking of somebody just recently who was like, I must be doing this wrong because I'm feeling this way. And I said, honey, actually, like you're very present to what is, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so it is, yeah, it can be that way. And that's why it's so personal. Healing is so personal, and it doesn't always go the way we want it to go. But I think the discomfort is also the start of healing. It's like the lobster that has to get out of its shell, and then it does, and it feels so much better. And I feel like that's a little bit about what the healing process is for me, and also the people that I observe.
hmm Yeah, and it is a process. And you had mentioned earlier the stages of grief. Okay, we know what those stages are
Yes.
roughly, but nobody can tell you between Monday and Friday, you're going to feel this. From
Right.
Sunday on, you'll feel that. those stages of grief can last a long time
Yes,
and they can circle back through. And
yes.
I feel like that is so true with healing. The healing can happen,
Mhm.
but the story can still come in sometimes. The pain can still come in sometimes. There can be a different layer. And that's another thing that I want to talk to you about, those
Mhm.
different layers, because it's not just like every human has been given one lesson that they must overcome. Ding, I
Mhm.
did it. I'm free
Right,
now.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, I liken it to like, you step on gum and
Mm,
you get most of it off and you're like, and then there's just that little tacky part that's left that every once in a while you hit it wrong and you're like, oh yeah, still have some work to do around this. And that's where I think, that's where I get excited actually. Anytime in my recent last couple years, anytime I revisit something,
yeah.
it's like, okay, thank you. Thank you, because I really want to fully honor everything that I'm experiencing or learning or growing from,
Hmm.
even if it is really, uncomfortable and really not a fun experience. But I think that it's the revisiting, like you said, there are the layers. And when
Yes.
we often get handed something to look at again, if we can do it in a way where, like you said, we're curious, and because now I just go, oh, isn't that interesting?
Hmm.
Like earlier, like in May, I was making a very big life decision, and I went through so much deep grief around it,
Yes.
and it was,
Yes.
oh, I just felt awful. I felt heavy. And I just was like, eh. But once I got to the other side of it, I had so much appreciation that I felt that awful because I knew that something really needed to move out. And so
Hmm.
maybe it was just a whole new layer that I was accessing because I was willing to. I think part of it is a willingness,
Yes.
right? An allowance, and then also, we don't, as humans, we don't like to be uncomfortable.
No, we
It's
don't.
really not, and that's why we're living in a time where, here's a pill for that, or just do this, or there's no patience in the process. And I'm definitely not a patient person, but I
Mm-mm.
have I have more. I think I'm better at. It's always me practicing this, but better at saying, okay, let me just allow some grace here, and let me look at let's take a little look see at what's here, and why is that gum still on the bottom of my shoe.
Hmm. Hmm. One of the things that I am really passionate about, and I feel like that makes me unique, is I really see things from that holistic perspective.
Mhm.
And you've talked about it's the mindset. It's the willingness to get curious, to see what is this about. It's shifting the mindset. But you also had a very physical body experience. You had the body in there. And then, the meditation, that touches the spirit realm, and you're very intuitive and you're into all of the things.
Mhm.
So it was very multidimensional. It was very multifaceted. And I'm curious how you noticed all of those different pieces coming together. If it was like, well, I have to start with the mindset, or once my body felt better, or just what was that interplay with those different dimensions?
Well, initially, I could not connect the dots.
I
I
get
couldn't,
it.
which is this the truth. A lot of times we're focused on I was so focused on the body. It wasn't
Yes.
until I understood the meditation and understood that I could go beyond the mind, the intellect, and the ego, which is like the most constricted part, and to move into the causal realm where I could access information or parts of me that had everything I needed to know already. So that was kind of the first, okay, yeah, if I can work on accessing that more, then maybe that will help me. And it's not all about the body and this illness. Because there's layers. There's the emotional part of it. There's so many different things. But I would say it took me a really long time to connect the dots. And now I have such a deeper understanding that we are multidimensional, beings.
Yes.
I understand that we're an extension of our environment and we are in relationship. And for me, one of the things that united a lot of that was the importance of nature. Like
Mm.
I understood that that was so, so important for me to spend time in nature. I'm a beach girl. I'm a spoiled California girl, and I have the blessing to live in a beautiful area where I can access the beach easily. And
Mhm.
it wasn't until I understood that, or outside my window here in my office is this gorgeous oak tree. And, it's to be in relationship to the beauty and the wisdom of the tree and to get my feet in the sand. So that helped me to kind of understand, oh, yeah, this is all interconnected. And I can't just focus on my mind. I can't just focus on my body. How can I work with all of it? And part of it is it's being in practice of that. Like when I have, because I can be really heady, I can be really cerebral and analytical, but then I think, well, am I missing the heart piece? Am I missing what my
Right.
gut's telling me? And so, yeah, it took a long time for me. It really did. And I kind of get it a little bit more now. But I'm always learning about how important it is to think of it in terms of that multidimensionality, because it's not just one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, because like with my background as an attorney, I can get in my head and I can get to cause and effect, and you do this, and then this is the result, and I
Right,
want to
right,
quantify. And
right,
sometimes that can work,
right.
but I can get locked there, and it
Yes,
doesn't help when I'm locked there. And
right.
yeah, and you had said something about like that willingness. One of
Mhm.
my favorite quotes from Course of Miracles is
Uh-huh.
just, am I willing to see things differently?
Yes, yes,
And oh my gosh, I mean, I cannot tell you how often I return to that. Am I willing to see things differently? And earlier you had talked about your identity,
yeah,
and letting go of our identity is huge. I mean, same thing in the infidelity space. I
yes,
am the cherished wife. I am the one who does it all right. I am
right,
loved. I am
right.
witnessed. I am adored. Oh my God, for 15 years, I didn't know that. I'm intuitive. Really? How can I be intuitive and have my partner cheat for 15 years? Like my identity, whoosh. And from the listeners that contact me, that's what they talk about too, is that identity. So what
Mm.
about that willingness to see yourself differently?
Yeah, and it's funny because I mentioned my May, kind of upheaval of like really looking at things and being deep in grief. And so much of that has to do with my identity again in a different way. My husband and I are thinking about renting our home. That's been our home for 25 years,
Mm,
to create a new little simple life in Laguna Beach. And I thought, that my identity was, everything I worked hard for, the beautiful home and all the things,
yes.
that really, it doesn't really mean a whole lot to my happiness anymore. And no judgment if it does for other people, but for me, it doesn't. And I was like, but wait, you raise your kids and you launch them and they're in a good place, but then you maintain a family home because that's what you do. That was what I was raised with, that thought and that identity. And I'm questioning it and being pulled in a direction where it's not that. So who am I if I'm not that? And so I went through the letting go of that and giving myself permission, actually, like, create the life you really want, Wendi. Like, here's your chance. And you're in
Mhm.
alignment with with the love of your life. So how amazing is that? And you have the support of the people in your life. But it was my own stuff, my own, like, well, who am I if I'm not that? And it took me down because I had to, like, wrestle with that deep imprint of, like, this is how I should be. And it's all the people pleasing again, and just the wanting to be the good girl and all of the things. And I feel like a joyous rebellion around this for myself, because it is I'm so much more than that. And what's funny about this is that when I first learned meditation, I was taught the soul questions, and the first question is who am I? Who am I really? And it's really not like the roles we play, because those
Right.
can always change, right? it's really about like how would people who know me and love me describe me, right? So I revisited who am I many, many, many years ago, but I had to look at it again. And yeah, I totally get what you're saying about identity and how it has such a grip on us.
Yeah.
And when you let go of that grip, how liberating and how fun it can be, like how adventurous it can become. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. And fun and adventurous, those are such good words because I used to think healing was a painful, boring process.
Yeah,
You talked
yeah,
about not being patient. I'm not patient either. I'm a doer.
right,
Let's fix it. Let's
right,
do it.
right.
And just to rethink healing that it can be fun, it
It
can
can,
be adventurous. What next? What
right.
next might need to be disrupted that
Yeah,
I didn't think or process or ponder or contemplate
yeah.
might need to be disrupted.
Yeah, and and it's funny, in good companies, they bring in disruptors,
Hmm.
right? To mix it up, to get people thinking maybe differently, to have people get a little bit out of their comfort zone. And I think that that's okay.
I do
I think that, I look at these, hiccups or these, not understanding quite it going the way I thought it was going to go is like, oh, okay. And then I am able to go, oh, well, it's because I had some resistance there.
too.
Like I call myself out, like, oh, you were sending mixed messages and you are resisting this. So when you're ready, you have those conversations with yourself. They're not as nice as I'm saying them right now, my
No, they're not.
internal that inner critic that's a little bit harsh,
Yeah.
um, that I'm working on making a little more gentle. But I listen and I think, okay, yeah, what are you going to do with this now? Okay,
Yeah.
so that got your attention. Now what? You know?
Hmm.
So I love that you brought that up because it is some disruption or like I operate oftentimes in flow. Like I try to be intentional, I try to be flexible, and so when I'm not in that, it really sucks. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going on? And then I have to look around and go, oh yeah, that's because of this, maybe. Maybe it's
Hmm.
not, but yeah, I think it's a thing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like how you talked about the conversations that you have with yourself
Oh
because
gosh.
that's huge. But I also think that is almost like, advanced level. That's the next level. And I feel like sometimes when we're so in the thick of it, we can't do that for ourselves
Right.
because the story has got too big of a grip on us, or
Yes.
we are too much in grief. And
Yeah.
having that outside force, that outside person, at least bring those questions, those ideas into our level of awareness.
Yes.
And that's what I think is the power of whether it's one on one coaching or
Yes.
taking a meditation class or
Yeah.
going to a healing retreat.
Yeah.
It's just having somebody else
Hmm.
look at you from the outside.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that it's really important, like you said, to bring in whatever can offer another perspective, um, can give you some space from and the one thing I really learned was we don't have to do this alone. That was
Right.
my thing. Like, I'm strong, I'm capable, and I thought I could just do it all on my own. And it wasn't until so many different people beautifully came in to help me. And it wasn't until I was able to really be willing to receive. That was a big thing too. I think so many of us are uncomfortable with receiving. Yeah, we're amazing at giving, like
Yeah.
it's more natural for us to give, but to receive. And so I think you receive when you sign up for a class. You receive when you're a participant in something where again there's potential for healing. And I was I saw, and I saw it for myself and I see it for others when people are willing to receive,
Hmm.
it changes everything.
Hmm.
Because we're not meant to do this alone. I think healing also means community. Healing means, finding those people that you can have a shared experience with, even though like it's not the same thing, but you have that common humanity of like, I can understand, again, betrayal in the way the best that I can from your
Right.
situation. And when we can come together and be honest and authentic about that, which is also a little hard for people because people
Oh,
are
very hard.
scared to be vulnerable. But when you do, um, and you become the recipient of wisdom or compassion or love or whatever it is, it's a game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when you talk about receiving because I had a really hard time receiving. I still do.
Yeah,
That's hard. But then that also ties into identity because I too, did PTA and fitness and like all these things. And my identity is the giver. My identity is the wise
right,
one. People would call me with their
right,
problems. That was my identity. So all of
right,
a sudden to be, I'm the one that needs help.
right,
Wait, what? I
right,
am the one that can't get out of bed or off the floor because I'm crying so hard.
right.
That's not me. And the receiving doesn't make you weak. You mentioned the vulnerability. It that was a hard one for me. I'm not weak to receive. It's such an honor to receive from people who are loving and kind and wanting to give it. And it's that dance between people, and it's not about weakness.
No, and I think that's unfortunate that we see, vulnerability or even sensitivity as a weakness.
Yeah.
I think that there's a new awareness around the strength in that, and I think if more people had more courage, then it would change some of the kind of thought around that.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll tell you, like the best way that I was in practice of receiving was my body kept saying yes. Like when it was time,
Wow.
like again, I was gifted a beautiful thing as a guest at the Chopra Center, and every cell in my body was like, yeah, 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 you
Yeah.
must say yes. And everything in my head was like, no, 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 how could you do that?
Hmm.
So I think that when the body never lies, the mind can trick us, but the body never lies. So that's been helpful for me in understanding, okay, yes, it feels good to receive this. And there will be things where I'm like, I don't know if that feels right. But it's getting into practice of trusting that more. But yeah, there's so many people that are way more comfortable in giving. And I was brought up with it's selfish, don't be
Right.
selfish. And I
Right.
want to undo that because I want to model for my kids, especially my daughter, that it's not selfish to receive. It's okay to ask for help. You don't, just because you're capable and smart and, all the things, get some help, and I think more of us need to model that for others because it is an undoing of a long narrative of that, and it's just not true.
It is. It is. And it's one of those things that keeps us separate
Yeah,
and disconnected from each
yeah,
other because if I pretend I have no needs and you pretend you have no needs and your
yeah,
husband and my husband and all of our kids and we all pretend we have no needs,
yeah,
we're just these slightly pain-filled little islands moving
yeah,
around. And it's so much deeper and richer and truer to be able to say, I need help
yeah,
and I'm hurting.
yeah.
And just to be who we are.
Yeah, and I just find it fascinating that so many people, how are you? Oh, everything's great.
Right.
How are your kids? Everyone's great.
Right.
And I and I'm like, wow, because I know like I'm really going through it with my son, or this has been challenging, and I have less and less of those relationships in my life because I just don't do them well. And
Yeah.
I want, especially now being in my 50s, especially in my late 50s, I actually really gravitate towards authenticity more than I ever have. I feel like we get to a certain point where we're like, you know what? I just want to be real. I want to be in truth. Again, like my conflict was around, but if I don't live here and I don't have this, then, And I'm like, does that really matter if I'm happy and enjoy and you know? And
Yeah.
so it's a relearning of that. But yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. How let's just get real and let's trust that there will be those people that will understand.
Yes.
And the rest, that's okay, you know? It's okay.
It is okay. And that's something that a lot of people listening to the show have expressed concern with.
Yeah,
I want to save my marriage, or I don't want to save my marriage, or what happens if?
right,
And I so often tell people it's not about the marriage. It's not about if you stay or if you go. In a way, that's immaterial. What matters is, are you willing to evolve and grow with each other? Are you willing to show up differently? And is your partner willing to show up differently? And is that a good match? And is that a good experience? And you
right.
had said earlier that, you lost some people through this healing
Oh
journey.
yeah,
Some people didn't understand.
yeah.
And it's painful to lose people, but it's also okay. And
It
I
is
just,
because the right people remain, you know, and again, there's a season and a reason oftentimes. And it taught me a lot. It taught me about also like I probably was out of alignment with those people.
yeah.
I really believe that we operate on different frequencies, and and I want to be in the frequencies that are high and that are
Yes.
healing and loving and not with the lower vibrations where people are just judgy and fear and have something to say. And so yeah, sometimes it's the refinement of like who am I hanging out with and who really matters.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, again, especially in marriages, I will be married almost 35 years, and you know, Esther Perel talks about how you can be married to the same person and have many marriages within the marriage. You know,
Yes.
and one and two were great. Three is not so great, you
Yeah.
know? And you know, we're on our fifth one within our marriage. And it's
Exactly.
fantastic. I've never been happier. I've never felt more connected. And so we are always refining our relationships, always, if we're
Yes.
caring about them. And so the rest of the people, like it's okay. But yeah, losing those people at the time was devastating. Like it felt like a deep disappointment and hurt. And now I understand why. I
Hmm.
understand that that loss helped me to gravitate towards the people that were supportive and loving and were ready to go on the next phase with me. But
Yeah.
it's not easy. It's not
No,
easy at all.
no, it's not. And you have been a part of and are a part of an incredible healing community. And I feel like that is the power of community. I know some people are like, I don't love community. It's not like we have to hang out all the time.
Right,
But when you can't hold the frequency yourself,
right.
I really like to be able to rest in the fact that, other people can hold it for
Yes,
me.
yes.
Yeah. And
I,
I
I
feel,
think we in general, I think I think about back in the day with tribes,
yeah,
with the primal aspect of it takes a village. I think what you're saying is very true that we can't always, hold it when we're going through our stuff and we need that elevation or the holding. And I find that more and more community, and it's one of actually the reasons I'm feeling drawn to move to Laguna Beach because it is such a community and a community of people that care about the same things that I care about for the most part.
yes,
And so, and what they value and how they show up. And so I think community is a really vital part of healing because again, it's not just a doctor, it's not just a therapist or a coach or a whatever. It's what each person can bring to that. And then to have a shared experience is just it's connective and it's supportive. And I found that through my years at the Chopra Center and now through, my work with Lee, it's so important to me that I don't know what I would do without it, actually.
yes, yes, exactly. And for me, sometimes I don't even think that I need it.
Right.
But if I attend, I will always get something.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I have a very clear intention and I
Right.
get it. And sometimes I have a very clear intention and I don't get it. but
right.
then I get something else that I didn't realize that I needed. I have just never left a community, a spiritual event
Mhm.
worse off than I was before.
Yeah, yeah. And a good facilitator or leader
Hmm.
is going to create a container that is safe and that is has the best interest in the there I have been to things where it hasn't necessarily been that.
Right.
And, but I think it is the responsibility to create a container where you can explore anything,
Hmm.
in community that way. So again, if somebody is really in it and is having a really hard time, that they feel safe in that. Like I think that's so important too.
Yes.
Um, yeah, that's really
Yeah. And to your point, I have been to experiences that were poorly facilitated
yeah,
or poorly explained. And the thing is, even for me, I didn't get what I wanted, but I
yeah,
also had this knowledge and this awareness that this is what was poor about it. But this nugget of wisdom, I'm going to take and I'm going to chew over it and
right,
think about it and process it. And oh, wow, now I want to explore this. And now I know 10 new ways not to do it when I'm
right,
doing it next
right,
time.
right. 100%. I totally agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. There's just so much around the idea of healing,
Yeah.
and I wanted to touch on it with you. And I think it's been explored beautifully.
Um, but yeah, I really have loved your questions in this discussion. I appreciate your heart and I appreciate your being willing to share all that you share. I think it will help a lot of people. And I also think in your own healing, like it's part of your own process too, to be sharing
Yeah.
this way. And I thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I really appreciated this time.
Good. You're welcome. And thank you for all of that. And yes to all of that. I feel like it is such my mission to
Yeah,
speak into things that
yeah,
people don't want to speak about
yeah,
and that they're embarrassed about and ashamed about. And healing is a journey and it's not fun. But
right.
you know what? We all are going to experience things.
Yeah,
So let's just talk about it and hold each other
yeah.
and walk each other home. So thank you for your vulnerability and your willingness to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Listeners, as usual, have an amazing week. And as usual, always remember to flaunt exactly who you are at the deepest level of your being, knowing that who you are is always more than enough.